What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new review. For today we have the highly anticipated UMIDIGI Crystal, and even though the phone looks and feels very premium, it is in fact a budget phone. So you can buy this phone for as low as $106. Now, of course, we have glass on the front, glass on the back and a metallic frame, but the internals aren't that great. So we have the MediaTek 6750T, which is an octa-core CPU but not the most power efficient CPU. We have 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of internal storage, and the device is running Android 7. Out of that 64 gigs of internal storage, we have about 54 gigs left, but you can install an SD card as internal storage, so you're not going to be running out of internal storage anytime soon. They call this a bezel-less phone, but in reality we still have bezels all around the screen. Of course, we don't have that big forehead that we usually get with most smartphones, but we still have bezels all around the screen. And I've actually seen another phone, another bezel-less phone, if we can call it that way, with smaller bezels than this one. Since the phone is missing that top side, they had to move the front-facing camera, the notification light and the sensor somewhere else. So they chose to put the sensors all the way at the top. So the proximity and the light sensor are now sitting all the way at the top of the device next to the 3.5mm audio jack. The proximity sensor works good, so whenever you're talking on the phone and you put the phone to your ear, the screen will turn off, but the light sensor doesn't work as good as a regular light sensor. The speaker at the top, even though it looks very tiny, it still works good and has plenty of volume, so no issues with that. And we also have a notification light that's sitting at the bottom of the device. To use the front-facing camera, you have to turn the phone around every single time. I mean, you can still use it the regular way, but the pictures will look kind of weird. Now, the picture quality from that 5-megapixel front-facing camera, it's average, so nothing special. If you have plenty of light, the pictures turn out okay, but as soon as you don't have enough light, as you know, the pictures become kind of blurry and grainy. The 5.5-inch screen has a resolution of 1080p and it looks better than a lot of other phones in this price range, but that's something normal for UMIDIGI devices. So the viewing angles are great, the colors are nice and vibrant, and the sensitivity is above average. I haven't had any issues whenever I was typing or playing games or browsing or anything like that, so the screen can register up to 5 touches in the same time. On most phones these days, the power button is sitting on the right hand side because that's how you grab the phone and it's the easiest way to press the button. Well, on this phone it's sitting on the left hand side, so it's gonna take you a while to actually get used to it. However, you can always press the fingerprint on the back and that will unlock the screen. And since we are talking about the fingerprint is accurate most of the time, I would say 9 out of 10 times, but it's not the fastest out there, so it's gonna take a second after you press it for the screen to unlock. And since we moved on the back of the device already, there we have a 13-megapixel camera and a 5-megapixel camera, and we've seen this dual camera setup for a lot of phones from China lately. And just like all the other phones from China that we've seen, the cameras are very disappointing. The camera app is somewhat simple but quick, but in the same time it's missing some important features like the HDR mode. So we don't have an HDR mode, but in the same time they added the possibility to save pictures in RAW, which doesn't make too much sense considering the quality of this camera. Since we have dual cameras on the back, you have the possibility of taking pictures with the bokeh effect, but I don't recommend that you take any because all the pictures that you're gonna take with the bokeh effect look kind of bad. So just like all the other phones that we've seen so far, the phone makes a circle in the middle and everything outside that circle it's blurred out. So yeah, the pictures don't look good at all. If you take regular pictures in daylight, some of them are actually gonna turn out quite good, but it's very hit and miss, so you don't know if you're gonna take a good picture every time. So you point the phone and you just hope for the best. So some pictures turn out great, some pictures not so great. And keep in mind that we don't have an HDR mode. And if you wanna take pictures at nighttime, well, you're better off not to take any pictures at nighttime because all the pictures that you're gonna take turn out quite grainy and blurry, so it's very difficult to focus on anything in low light. Moving on to sound quality, so the output from the 3.5mm audio jack on top of the device is maybe just above average, so we get a lot of volume but not that much bass, and it's kind of the same with the bottom speaker, so the single speaker that we have at the bottom of the device. The phone can take regular USB-C cable, so any USB-C cable that you have at home will work for this device, and the phone also supports OTG, but unfortunately no fast charging. So charging this from 0 to 100, it's done in about 3 hours, maybe just under 3 hours. And that brings us to the battery life for this device. So inside this we have a 3000 mAh battery, but unfortunately we have that MediaTek 6750T, which is not the most power efficient CPU. So you're kind of gonna be able to make it through an entire day and get about 2.5 hours of screen on time, but realistically the battery life on this device is not that great. Performance-wise, well, the phone is not the fastest out there, but since we already knew that we have the MediaTek 6750T, I wasn't expecting that much. So the scores that I got on the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 are maybe just somewhat higher than your regular phone, the MediaTek 6750T. Luckily, the software seems to be very well optimized, and that means that whenever you are using apps like Chrome, for example, zooming in, zooming out, scrolling up, scrolling down, everything does seem to work quite good. For gaming, the phone can perform good as well. I mean, it gets kind of hot and most games are gonna be okay to play, but don't imagine that you have a powerhouse. So if you drop the settings to like medium, well, you're gonna do much better for gaming. And since we all watch YouTube videos, the maximum resolution that you can select for YouTube is 1080p, and all the videos that I watched at that resolution did seem to go very good and without any issues. Moving on to the GPS unit inside this phone, well, it's not the greatest, so it takes a few seconds to find your location, but whenever you're driving in between tall buildings, the phone tends to lose your location. So you're peacefully driving and all of a sudden it loses your location, then it finds it again and then it loses it again and so on. Luckily, the phone has plenty of sensors, and as I mentioned earlier, we have a proximity and a light sensor, and we also have a gyroscope, which is useful in many situations. And moving on to connectivity, well, the phone can connect to 4G networks and we also have dual band Wi-Fi. Now, unfortunately, the Wi-Fi connectivity is not the greatest. I mean, it's among the worst that I've seen. If I'm not in the same room with my router, well, there is like no signal over Wi-Fi. And if there is signal outside of that room, well, the Wi-Fi works very slow. So the Wi-Fi connectivity is not the best. Now, the speeds that I got were okay because I was in the same room with the router, but other than that, the Wi-Fi sucks. The UMIDIGI Crystal comes pre-installed with Android 7 right out of the box, and on top of that we have a very light skin that looks very close to stock Android, and that's great because it helps the phone speed up a lot. The phone will still take a little while to open apps, but that's because of that underpowered CPU that they used for this device, but overall for the price I believe that the phone performs quite well. The settings app is also very simple and we don't get that many features, but we get some important features. So the possibility to actually change the navigation buttons at the bottom of the screen, that's very important because some people don't like the back button on the right or so on. And it's time to conclude this video. So the phone does look good and probably among the best from all the bezel-less phones that we've seen this year, but in reality it's not that great because we have that MediaTek 6750T, which is not a great CPU. I mean, it's not fast and it uses a lot of power. So I think this phone would have been much better off to have the Helio P25 as we've seen for other bezel-less phones. So I'm not sure why they chose that. Other than that, the phone is just average, but as I said, this is a budget phone. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.